Hi, third grade. Welcome back. It is Monday the 20th, and we're back from break, and it's time to start something new in math. So we're not going to stop working on division and multiplication. Those are tools that you need in your toolbox. You're going to notice that we're going to work on multiplication facts and division facts all the way till the end of the year so that you keep it fresh in your mind and you get better and better and better at them. But this week we're also going to start talking about fractions and learning more about fractions. So a fraction is just a way in math that we describe parts of a whole, equal parts of a whole. So if you think of if you've ever had a fracture, hopefully not, but if you've ever broken a bone or if you know someone who's broken a bone, the bone is a whole and the fracture is little pieces of the bone. I think of fracture fraction, whereas we have a whole and the fraction is equal parts of a whole, smaller than a whole, and that's how we describe them in math. So today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to start a term page in our math notebook. So if you could please open to a clean page and write fraction terms. We're going to start that today. We're going to do 3. We're going to do term for fraction, numerator and denominator. And then we're going to do a little activity with the paper and the favorite color crayon I asked you to get. So if you don't have those things, pause it here and go get them. Okay, so let's see. Let's start with our term part first. A fraction, like I was saying, is a number that represents part of a whole. So if you want for spelling and for writing down, a fraction is a number that represents part of a whole. And I put this equal sign here to remind me that it has to be equal parts. That's important. If they're not equal parts, then that's not going to work for fraction language. Okay? So what I'd like you to do, once you've copied down the definition for fraction, I would like you to please write the fraction 1/3 underneath as an example of a fraction. And you can even label this 1/3 as a fraction. And then if you notice, I wrote an arrow up top and an arrow down bottom. And the two other terms that we need to know today are numerator and denominator. And right there in line, we've got the numerator on top and the denominator on the bottom. Right? With me so far? Some of this might be review for you. You guys know me, I always like to have a little picture, a reminder with things. So if you think about it like this, denominator is down on the bottom, D for down, and the numerator is up top. And if you see this little circle with the peace sign, in our 1/3, the 3 represents how many parts? How many parts altogether? So we have 3 parts. The denominator is how many parts altogether, equal parts in our fraction. And the numerator represents the fraction that we're showing, right? So if it's 1, then 1 equal part would be shaded. If we wanted to write 2/3, then 2 equal parts would be shaded. Okay? So if you want to pause it there to write this down, you can. I'm going to pause it and I'm going to write out the definition for numerator and denominator so you can add those to your page. So I'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully you labeled your fraction like I showed you before with the numerator on top and the denominator with the D down below. And here are the definitions we're all going to use collectively, okay? So we see for numerator, okay, I can't read backwards, shows how many equal parts the fraction represents. Okay? So up top is showing what the fraction represents. Okay? So you can pause this if you need to write it down. Don't feel rushed. Don't have to stress. Just pause it. Okay? And the denominator down below, D for down, shows the number of equal parts the whole is divided into. Okay, so let's say we've got a pizza with 8 slices. The denominator would be 8. Okay. So pause this to copy these down, and while you are doing that, I'm going to get the next activity ready for us with our piece of paper and our crayon. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, so you have to have one loose piece of paper and your crayon ready. If you don't, please go grab one. Ask your parents where you can get a piece of paper. Alright, so start by folding your piece of paper in half. It doesn't matter which way in half, as long as it's in half. So you can go long ways like a hot dog or burger. I'm going to do mine end to end like a burger. Okay, and make yourself a crease, fold it in half. And now that you have folded it in half, you see that you have 2 equal parts, hopefully, if you folded it well. Okay, I'm going to crease mine so you can see it better. Okay, could you please take your crayon and color half, 1/2 of the paper? And I'll be right back. I'll do mine, okay? Pause. Okay, so now my paper looks like this. Now, if we were going to write this in a fraction, right? Easy peasy, right? There are 2 parts to this whole, and one of them is colored. So how would we write that? Well, the denominator would tell us that we have 2 equal parts. So that would go on the bottom, down for denominator. And 1 is colored, so that to represent this fraction, we need a 1 up top. So this is how we would write it, 1/2. Okay? All right, great. Now, take your paper. You don't have to color again, but this time, I want you to fold it again in half, and then fold it in half again. Okay, equal parts. So I'm going to fold mine again, and now mine looks like this. And I'm going to crease it to show you the best I can. And when I open it up, now I have 4 total parts of my whole. And how many are shaded? 1, 2. So how would this change my fraction? How would I represent this with a fraction? Well, how many whole pieces, equal pieces, are there in our whole? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know our 4 would be the denominator down below. And how many, if we have to represent this fraction, how many are shaded? What goes up top to tell us what this fraction is? 1, 2 are shaded. So now our fraction would look like 4 on the bottom, because that's how many there are in total, and 2 on the top, because that's how many are shaded, and we need to represent our fraction in the numerator. So now we can write this fraction like this. Okay, 2/4. Now, if you could please fold it back up, and do it one more time. I'm going to crease it one more time, and I'm folding it as carefully as I can in another equal section. All right, let's see. Now when I open it up, we can have, I know it's hard to see, I wish I could do it in person with you, but we have to make do. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 equal pieces of a whole. And how many are shaded now? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could write this fraction how? How would you write this in your notebook? What's going to go in the denominator and what's going to go in the numerator? All right, so let's see. Overall, we have how many squares? Is 8. And that's 8 equal parts, right? And how many are shaded to represent this fraction? We see that there are 4. So we put the 4 in the numerator. Now, all of these are true, right? If we look at our paper, there's 1/2, there is 2/4, and there is 4/8, all on the same paper. Okay? All right, so hopefully that just is a nice little way to get you thinking about fractions and where the numbers go and what they mean. And we're going to continue to build on that from there. If you have any questions for me, please jot them down in your notebook and save them for Wednesday when we can have a meeting. If you need to come by and visit me in my office hours on the Zoom call, you can do that, okay? Otherwise, you've got some practice to do on your own, and I will see you tomorrow.